Oh hey, my name is Nadia and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Halloween is right around the corner, and to get into the spooky mood, I have been watching for the very first time all the Harry Potter movies, and I thought what better way to celebrate Halloween than to try making a butterbeer cake. So today I'm going to be following the recipe originally found on Live for Cake, which I will make sure to link down below, but I made a few modifications, added my own little twist on things. So on that note, let's get cooking. I'm going to be making 3 10-inch round cake layers, so I'm actually going to be doubling the original recipe, which is how I'm going to explain it to you guys. But the original recipe makes enough for, I believe, 3 6-inch rounds. To start, we're going to get our dry ingredients ready. In a large bowl, I'm going to combine the flour, sifted, always, baking powder, butterscotch instant pudding mix, and salt. Mix that all together and set it to the side. Next, we're going to be beating the butter. Remember last week how I told you guys it's best to take your butter out the night before so it has time to come to room temperature and it's just gonna be easier to beat in the mixer? Well, I forgot to do that. So I took my butter straight out of the freezer and I let it thaw for a little bit. Then I cut it into small pieces and put it in the microwave, lowered the power level to 5, and warmed it up on intervals of 15 seconds. The butter's gonna soften, not melt completely, so don't keep warming it up until you have a puddle in your microwave. You just kind of want it to be soft to the touch and then you should be good to go. Throw your softened butter in a stand mixer fitted with the paddle attachment and let it get nice and creamy. Scrape the bowl and then add the sugar. When I double a recipe, I rarely double the sugar because, let's be real, cakes are usually sweet enough. You don't need double the amount of sugar. The original recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar, so of course if you're doubling it, that's 2 cups. That's a lot of sugar, so I actually reduced it from the original amount and only put about 3/4 of a cup. Trust me, it's gonna be enough. And it's not one of those like be-all end-all ingredients, so you can get away with this. Let that mix for a few minutes, scrape the bowl, and then add the eggs one at a time, making sure each egg is fully combined before you add the next one. Go ahead and add the vanilla, and then we're going to alternate adding the dry ingredients and the cream soda. So I added 1/3 of the dry ingredients, half of the cream soda, half of the dry ingredients, the rest of the cream soda, and then the last little bit of the dry ingredients. And just make sure it mixes really well in between all of those steps. In the recipe, it very clearly says that if you use pink cream soda, your cake will come out looking a little pink. I, however, have never seen a clear cream soda on the shelf at the store. And I went and I looked and I didn't see anything, so I don't know if I'm just missing something, if I'm living under a rock, but I bought the pink cream soda and added it to the cake. Once that was all combined, I prepared my cake pans. So like I said, I am using 3 10-inch round cake pans. One of them is springform, and then 2 of them were just regular cake pans. So I went ahead and lined all 3 of them with parchment paper. For the springform, you can lock the parchment paper in and then just cut the excess off. And then for the cake pans, you can just trace the pan, cut it out, and then I used oil and a paper towel to make sure that the parchment paper stuck to the bottom, and then I just used the extra oil on the paper towel on the sides just to make sure nothing stuck or burnt or anything like that. Some people will measure out their batter on a scale and then divide it evenly by the amount of pans they have. I went the simple way and just used an ice cream scoop to try and make the pans as even as possible. I lost count at one point, but that's fine because they were as good as they were gonna get. I was a little worried because the batter was on the thicker side and I had to spread it around with a spatula, which I haven't really encountered a whole lot when making cakes, so I called the expert in. Mom, can you come look at these cake layers? Are they too thin?
Well, they have baking powder, they have thickener rice.
There's baking powder, yeah, but still.
Well, you doubled the recipe, Nadia.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, what do you think?
It should be okay, I think. I don't know, I never made that kind of a cake.
Alright, let's see how it goes. This is a great point because you always have to look back at the ingredients that you used. So we use baking powder, which when it gets wet causes a chemical reaction that creates a carbon dioxide gas, which thus inflates anything it's in. And we also added cream soda, which is a carbonized drink, so we're gonna get that volume. It's gonna be okay. These went in the oven at 350 for about 20 minutes. I rotated the pans in my oven after about 10 minutes, and when they looked done, I poked a toothpick in the center. It came out clean, so I took the pans out, let them cool a little bit, and then I took them out of their cake pans, which was surprisingly very easy, and I let them chill on a wire rack for a little bit. And once they were nice and cool, I stacked them and wrapped them with a whole bunch of saran wrap so they wouldn't dry out. Now we get to start on the marshmallow frosting and get ready because it's gonna be sweet. In a stand mixer fitted with the paddle attachment, beat the butter until it's nice and creamy, then add the icing sugar. I'm also doubling this frosting recipe, which the original calls for 4 cups of icing sugar, so doubled, that's 8 cups of icing sugar. That's a lot of icing sugar. But to be fair, in any other icing recipe that has like cream cheese butter and icing sugar is kind of the main component that's gonna hold everything together, I would totally add the 8 cups, if not more, depending on like what stiffness you're going for. But because we're gonna be adding a whole lot of marshmallow fluff, I know that that's really gonna like stabilize the icing, so I'm only gonna add 4 cups of icing sugar. Once the butter and icing sugar is combined, add the marshmallow fluff. This is my first time ever trying marshmallow fluff, and it basically just tastes like a marshmallow, but just a little bit sweeter, and it's like kind of fun to take out. It's like a melted marshmallow, like when you make s'mores. It's fun, it's enjoyable. It's the little things in life. Add some vanilla, and that's it for the frosting. So now we get to assemble this cake. I put a little bit of frosting on the bottom so that the cake wouldn't slip and slide, and then place a layer on the plate, spread some icing on top, and then using a piping bag, I piped a bit of a border around the edge, because next I added a bunch of caramel sauce and butterscotch chips. You don't have to do this, I just added it because I thought it would add a little surprise element in between the layers. And you guessed it, you're gonna do the same thing one more time. Icing, edge, caramel, butterscotch chips, and then top it off with the last layer. Then you're gonna take some more icing and do a crumb coat. I used an offset spatula, which I'll link down below, but essentially you just wanna cover the cake in a thin layer of icing and then pop it in the fridge for 30 minutes, if not more, just so it really solidifies and hardens, and the next layer is a lot easier. Once the crumb coat is set, you're gonna basically do the exact same thing, except this time you might wanna use a little more icing because it's gonna be your final layer. You can also play around with the finishes at this point too. I usually like to keep my cakes a little bit rough, mostly because I just don't have the patience to like smooth it all over. But today I decided that I was gonna smooth it over. The trick is to run your spatula under hot water and smooth over the icing. To make things easier for myself, I filled a cup with boiling water and just dipped the spatula in it, and you can see it works like a charm. After I smoothed everything over, I thought it would be a great idea to cover up all my hard work with some butterscotch chips. I pressed the chips into the side of the cake, which I thought was gonna look a lot cooler than it did. I don't know, I'm not super happy with how it came out, but I used most of the butterscotch chips, so I guess there's that. On the top of the cake, I did a rope border, and I thought it would be a great idea to line my piping bag with some of the caramel sauce. Although that really didn't work, it just kind of all went to the bottom. I thought it was gonna give it like a really cool effect, but it all just came out in one big blob, so short-lived. And that's the end of that, a butterbeer cake with a marshmallow frosting. It is a little bit pink in person. It kind of looks like the color of the butterscotch chips, but just like with a hint of pink. It's just like a splash of it, but that's okay. I can smell the caramel from here. There's a lot of caramel in this. This is good. This is really good. Cake part, A+. Frosting, A+. Filling, A+. 10 points to Nadia. It's definitely on the sweeter side, but sometimes the bonus of having like a really rich, dense cake is that you can serve it to more people because you can like cut it into smaller pieces. Because sometimes people don't want a really big, super rich, dense piece of cake. They just want like a little bit of it. So there you go. There's more to go around. The cake part itself is super moist and very delicious. I also appreciate how easy it was to work with, because sometimes when you stack a cake, it's not a stackable kind of a cake. It just falls everywhere and slips and slides. But this one really held its shape. It was good. It didn't crack at all when I was transferring it from the cake pan to the wire rack or the plate or anything in between. So A+ for durability. The icing is also really good. It's not super sweet, which is a little surprising because, I mean, there was a whole lot of marshmallow fluff in there, but I also reduced the sugar, so maybe that had a part to play. And I also really like it because it held its shape. It's a butter base, so when it's cold, it's gonna solidify, it's gonna do what it needs to do, it's not gonna move, which is awesome. The butterscotch chips and the caramel sauce definitely add a lot of sweetness to this cake. They also add a little bit of a crunch in between the layers, which that was my logic. I thought that was kind of going to be nice and satisfying to the palate, but you could live without it. I don't know if I would add it again. It was fun to try. I'll leave that one up to you. I went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in 2016 and I had butterbeer, but it was like an iced butterbeer. And it was pretty good. To be honest, I don't really remember what it tasted like completely. So if somebody has gone recently and wants to try making this cake and do a little comparison, go for it. But otherwise, it's fun. I also brought this to a party and it was a pretty big hit, or at least everybody told me it was really good, but I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna take the compliment. So yeah. That's all from me this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you have a very happy Halloween, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye. Okay, let's see how long this is gonna take me. This cake is actually almost a week old. I It held up, it's pretty good. You know what, on that note, let's just get right cooking. Let's get right cooking. Who says that? Nobody. Today we are making butterbeer cake. I couldn't find anything wizardy, so I went with MTV. Magic enough. I didn't like how I said that. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna say next, so here we are. I feel like out of practice. Okay, this one. This is the take that's gonna count. It's been 17 minutes and I am struggling. Carbon dioxide? Yeah. My mom thought I was gonna turn the microwave on with my camera in there. Right, Mom?
Yeah, it almost gave me a heart attack, for God's sakes.
Oh my God. I'm not gonna microwave the camera, don't worry.
What are you doing?
I'm just trying to get a different angle for the butter.